Testing 1, 2, 3. Hi, my name is Ryan Freeman. Welcome to my garden. I am actually going to do a book review of D.H. Lawrence, one of his short stories, 150 some odd pages, so actually not that short, and it dealt with a very sort of heavy topic, the whole civilization versus nature, masculinity, what is a woman, what is a marriage, relationships, how so many of them are just fake as fuck. So it's a timeless story that anyone living within the civilized world or away from the civilized world, perhaps you're a hermit, you could identify with it. I won't do any spoilers. I'll just go ahead and give you some of my thoughts, avant-garde and off the cuff, that this story sort of brought about within me, because I have never read a story by D.H. Lawrence. I had heard about him from Aldous Huxley. And so, in good terms, Aldous Huxley wrote that D.H. Lawrence was a phenomenal writer, but an eccentric one. And perhaps in another video, I'll actually talk about some of Aldous Huxley's remarks. So, D.H. Lawrence was on my radar. And when I found this book, which actually has 2 short stories, I found it for 50 cents. I picked it up, and I was excited to read it. A little scary. You never know what you're going to get involved with when you pick up a new author, right? Every author's got their own soul, their own style, and it sort of becomes a part of you during the time that you're reading it, and hopefully even afterwards. But immediately I liked it. He has a way of bringing the characters not only to life, but also in such a subtle way that these characters make their presences felt by just these very clever interactions with each other, and that's very ambiguous. Let me see if I can untangle that. Let me talk about the characters. Lou is the main character, the protagonist. She's a beautiful, young, rich American, and she's in Europe with her lover and now husband, a dashing, handsome, talented Australian gentleman who is trying his best to make his way up the social ladder in Europe and launch himself as a painter. And the story starts off talking about their relationship and how they're compatible and how they're not compatible, and even in the ways that they interact badly upon one another. Like, it talks about how Rico can fry Lou's nerves, and yet it does something to her, some chemical reaction that makes her absolutely irresistibly drawn to him. It's fantastic. So there's no black and white really in this story at all. It's all within the chemistry, and a lot of it deals with the unsaid things that are happening in the various entanglements of relationships. Lou's mother is a very memorable character. She's a powerful, rich American woman who sort of looks down on the Europeans. They're two of the most interesting characters, perhaps to me and probably to a lot of guys out there who read, will be actually the servants. And so this book actually deals with sort of a class sort of reflections on status, how some people are rich, some people are poor, and yet despite the disparage between apparent wealth, you may be a rich man, I may be a poor guy, and yet why is it then when we're within each other's presence, you feel inferior to me? This happens a lot. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. You may actually be a manager, yet when you're around one of your underlings, he's actually the king, and you're the servant. There's 2 worlds, right? And I'm sure you'll understand what I'm talking about. There's the social world, where you have your office and your role in society, and you have your house, and you live on such and such street. And then there's the natural world. And And the natural world has a different hierarchy. It's the hierarchy of who can kill another man with their bare hands, or who's got more sexual libido, or who's a better dancer on the dance floor. There's an unsaid hierarchy within nature, a hierarchy of moral power, intellectual power, will power. Physicality comes into it. It's not necessarily one of those things, and obviously I can't describe it perfectly. But this book does an excellent job of talking about these two things that are happening. You know, you have people within offices, like some of the noblemen who own these horses, but then the groom, like there's a Welsh groom who is perfectly at peace. He's never startled. He knows how to handle Saint Mawr. Saint Mawr. See, I haven't even talked about the horse which this book is actually titled after. Saint Mawr is this sorrel horse. I had to look up what sorrel meant. Sorrel's like this reddish brown coat with black tail, black mane. So I learned a lot about horses reading this. And he's a horse that hasn't been domesticated. He's a horse that still has his animal vigor. And when Lou, who's in this sort of weird relationship with Rico and is in rubbing elbows with the social elite, when she looks into this horse, she finds something of value outside of her normal world that has unspeakable power, but also life. And this is what she wants. And she reflects that the longer she lives within sort of these, you know, it's this nice social life where you're dashing from one opera to a beautiful restaurant and over to the park, and you're doing all of these social functions. It's a lot of fun. It's all pleasure, but it can leave people hollow, right? It doesn't satisfy the entire human. And so she's starting to realize that, and she realizes it very strongly when she looks into this horse. This horse has what she's missing, and she starts to see it in this Welsh groom, the guy who sort of, I mean, he's not an impressive guy if you just looked at him physically. He's short, he's sort of bow-legged, he's quiet, but when you look into his eyes, he looks right through. He understands a woman, he understands a horse, and no man can touch and unnerve his heart. And then there's another character, Phoenix. He's 3/4 Indian, 1/4 Spanish-Mexican, from America. He's the groom of Lou's mother, Mrs. Witt. Very fun. Mrs. Witt's probably my favorite character because she's got such a chaotic, powerful nature, and she owns it, and I love that. She doesn't try to be a good person. She's just herself. And she does try to be a good person. She tries not to hurt other people in so many ways, but she also does accept herself. I fucking love that. She's not a tiger trying to pretend to be a lamb. She's a tiger. And anyways, her groom, Phoenix, this 3/4 Indian guy, he's got an unspeakable willpower. And so a lot of this book, the gem that I found in it was sort of getting around this whole idea of this undercurrent of life. What is life? What actually fills us with life? Yes, of course, we need money, we need a position, we need society, and it deals with all of that, and it talks about that. But there's something more needed, really, to feel alive. Otherwise, you get hollowed out and you become this fake social fuck. So that's what Saint Mawr's about. And it's exciting and it's funny. You know, I sort of described the heavy part of it, but it's funny. It's hilarious. So I definitely recommend you read it. I think everyone should read it, and I really feel like our society is of course there's a lot of beautiful things about it, but the connection with that natural, eternal realm where men were heroes, horses carried them into battle. We're missing that from our life, and I think that's probably why a lot of like I just came back from jujitsu today, and like why do I do jujitsu? I'm 38 years old. I've got a baby. I shouldn't be risking breaking my arm, but it taps into this part of my masculinity that was dormant. You know, society raised me as a bitch. You know, don't fight, Ryan. Don't be a tough male. Be a bitch. That's sort of how American guys are raised today. Not like our ancestors, you know. And it's scary, right, when you're raised in a bitch society and and you come across like a real man. Well, I think this is a great book for men to read, but it's also a great book for women to read. The only person that probably wouldn't like this book is a politically correct bitch. You know, if you're politically correct and you're afraid of actually raw truth, like actually finding out things that will shatter your idealistic expectations, then you should not read this book. You might find it to be sexist and maybe even racist, and you might go on a tirade. Anyways, I hope that you pick up D.H. Lawrence's Saint Mawr. I'm going to read the other book that's attached. Actually, I just started it. Started off phenomenal. And I'll make a book review of that when I'm finished. I hope you enjoyed this. My name's Ryan. Thank you for watching. Bye.